It was exit interview day for the Blackhawks at Fifth Third Arena, and we've got a ton to talk about. The coaching search, free agency plans, Connor Bedard's contract extension, a ton more. Let's get to it here on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use the promo code CHGO365 when you download it. And whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Jay Zawoski. That's Greg Boyson. That's Mario Tirabassi. Sarah's here running the show. We are at full strength today, and it's an important day. We had the Blackhawks exit interviews. We talked to almost the entire roster. It felt like a lot
of people.
Just a rapid fire, crazy day. So we figured the best way to do this was to divide the show into three separate portions. We're going to talk about Connor Bedard in the first segment, off-season plans with Kyle Davidson in the second, and then all the optimism that a lot of the veterans on this team have shown throughout the day. So that's where we're going to start.
A much different vibe than
way
last
different.
year.
100%.
A lot different.
Yes. So do us a favor before we get rolling. Hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube page as well. If you're listening on the podcast app, we thank you. We love you. Make sure you're following or subscribed on your favorite podcast app as well. Most important, probably newsy thing was the talk of maybe a contract extension for Connor Bedard, which can be signed July 1st. Mm-hmm. And let's start it there with Connor Bedard speaking on that this morning. He was the first to speak.
You'll be eligible for an extension on July 1st. Would you like to explore that this summer, or would you prefer to wait on that?
Yeah, I guess no real preference for me. It's something I haven't really put too much thought to be honest, just with the season and you're playing and focusing on that. But I mean, I've said it 100 times. I mean, I love it here, and I have a great relationship with Kyle and everyone, and I don't even know like what to expect with that. So. Obviously you have the conversation and stuff and see, but, I'm not too worried about any of that. Like I said, great relationship, and I know that, I want to be here for a long time, so I don't think that's something that I'm thinking about too much right now.
There he is, Connor Bedard, and he later in the interview talked about just reiterating his love for the city, his desire to be here long term, a reminder that everything that happened today is either going up on our YouTube or is up on our YouTube right now. So you can check it out after the show, all the long form interviews, but he wants to be here. The Hawks obviously want him here. So I don't think it felt like an extension is getting done this summer.
It could. Yeah. I mean, I think it might help if the Blackhawks do it now compared to if they maybe go into next season knowing that, he can sign an extension at any point. But if the season gets going, that'll start being a narrative of, hey, extension, ? And if he plays, continues to play well and puts up numbers, point per game and all that stuff, like that could increase the value of that contract. So I think, Blackhawks probably want to get it done as soon as possible. And it just can avoid that like narrative, and I think it just is a good piece of business to like be tidy, get it done. Connor's on his second deal, and you start piecing together the future of the organization financially with that deal done.
Yeah, obviously the sooner the better. You want to get it done, get that over with. But people are kind of like surprised. He's putting the end of these narratives that he hates it here. Like, he's been saying this stuff the whole time.
Yeah,
It's been
they were never
narratives.
his narrative.
No.
Yeah, outside of the city narratives.
But you get some of it in the city. How many people have come in the post game chat? He's gonna leave after his first contract, even though that's physically impossible. But it's a lazy narrative, and people will continue it. The engagement farmers and the people that need clickbaits to survive will continue this nonsense. But there it is.
Fans.
He could sign a $3 million year deal, and people will still say he wants to leave. He's unhappy. That little 2-week month blurb did so much for the positivity of this whole franchise. Everybody talked about it today, and we'll hear a lot about it, but I think that also helped a lot for Connor Bedard to be like, this is what we're talking about. We got guys that can play at my level, guys that could, help me out. It's not just, placeholder veterans that are only here for a year. These are guys that I could actually build and grow. He said, I'm looking forward to growing up with this group. Mm-hmm. He's excited. Probably more excited now than he's been since he got drafted.
I would think so.
Because he's seeing what this can be and hopefully will be. So there was never any idea, any thought of he's unhappy. Or was he frustrated with his own game? Absolutely. Was he frustrated the team wasn't winning?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You want him to be frustrated by not winning. That's a good thing.
You could be frustrated at your job and still love your job.
Yeah.
Right. Like you could still be happy with where you are and want it to be better. Those are those are not things that they're exclusive to each other. Like, so the whole narrative that he's unhappy as a Blackhawk is always been garbage, and he pretty much said it was garbage, and it probably still won't make a difference to some outlets because that's how they get their clicks.
Yeah, well, and even if you don't want to take Bedard's word for it, everybody on the team had different praise for him. Ryan Donato called him the hardest working guy on the ice, and kind of check that one out later because he talks about how he himself focused in on specific things he needs to work on. And we're going to get to that next with Bedard. But Frank Nazar is he's a funny guy. He's he's fun to hang around with. And even Nazar said that's something a lot of people don't understand about Connor is that he's happy to be there. He loves it. He's having a great time. So I'm hoping his comments put that narrative to bed. Literally, we put the video up and someone's like, wow, this is a red flag. I'm like, what? It's literally him saying he's happy. Yeah. I don't know how that's a red flag. But he also went on to talk about his offseason plans and where he wants to get better. And I think a lot of people are going to like to hear what he had to say in this cut. Here's Connor Bedard on his upcoming offseason.
Just kind of all-around game. I mean, obviously there's still times that, you got to learn things in your own end and little stuff like that. But overall, I think that definitely improved. And then I was pretty happy with kind of my last few months in the circle with face-offs. And obviously that was a struggle. And, it's still tough, but I want to be a centerman, in the end, and I think that's obviously a big thing. So to kind of have a couple months where I did improve and you maybe figure little things out that help you a little bit. I think that's a big positive.
You had some real moments of frustration earlier in the season individually as a team. How much different is your mindset now that the way that things ended, kind of on an upswing with a lot of the new guys coming in, looking good, you're winning some games? How much easier, for lack of a better word, to make going into the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, with everyone coming up, and early in the year, I mean, when you're losing, guys are frustrated, but, we're just competitive, and you want to win, and, I mean, I'm always, having fun at the rink and enjoying the game and stuff, and, I think, things can maybe get taken out of context a little bit, and, but, I mean, we are always happy to be here and playing and having fun. And like you said, with the young guys coming up, I think there was so much positivity surrounded by us, especially kind of at that end of the year. And how many guys made their debuts or came up after being in Rockford for a bit or whatever. So it was great to see a lot of guys' growth and see what the future can hold. And it was a lot of fun, to get to play with these guys, and I'm looking forward to just kind of growing up with these guys and keep improving.
What are your plans for this summer?
Yeah, I'll probably be home for the most part. Kind of training and stuff. So, nothing crazy.
Will it be similar to what you did last summer, or do you plan to change anything?
Yeah, I think you always kind of want to evolve, and I think for me it's just working as smart as I can, and just learning your body, learning how you're gonna get the most out of yourself, and that's a big thing for this summer. I mean, probably the biggest thing is speed, acceleration, stuff like that. For me, that's kind of something that I've narrowed down. Maybe my the thing I can improve on the most. So hopefully, kind of attack that and figure out the best way for me to improve in that area, as well as obviously a lot of other areas.
Did you notice this year that was, I guess, a challenge for you at times, or if you were faster, that it could have led to more opportunities, or what?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just with the way I play, I don't think I'm slow, but probably kind of average speed and stuff. I'm not going to ever be McKinnon or McDavid or anything like that, but I think if I can just kind of gain another step and puts guys in their heels a little more, and I think with the way I think the game, that could be a huge plus for me, and help me create more.
Yep, Connor Bedard knows he's slow. He has watched the chat. He has heard everyone's criticism.
Yeah, that's exactly how he.
No, he needs to add a step. He knows it, and he's going to do it.
Yeah, and as he closed it out there, he feels like he's an average speed guy, but even just a little bit more of that to his game, even just getting that extra half step with the style of player that he is and the skill set he has, just makes him even more of a threat. Like, as much as his shot is a threat, and the way that he can see the game, see how plays develop, and make passes that most others can't. If he could do that at a faster rate, if he can play more of as a rush attack player, play off the rush, like, that's just going to add that dynamic to his game and make him even more of a concern for defenses and how they have to defend him.
Yeah, I mean, all of that he said is true. And like, as I think Anders talked about it earlier, it's not necessarily just being fast, but knowing when to use it, when to back off. It's one thing to just jet burn right up the ice every time, and it's another thing to kind of lull people in a sense of security and then blow by them. And that's all part of playing the game. And the more you play, and the most interesting thing about this stuff today is when you listen to the younger guys, because pretty much everybody today was asked, what are you going to do during the summer? What are you going to work on? The young guys who are like 1-2 years into their career, they're always, they work on generalities. It's, I want to get faster. I need to get stronger. It's right. Big picture kind of things. Still like learning, becoming an NHL player. I have to be faster to play in this league. I need to be stronger to play in this league. But when you talk to guys who've been in the league for 3, 4, 5, 6 years or more, it's very specific details of the game.
I need to work on my stride.
Yes, I need to work on face-offs from the left dot. Like very specific.
Well, even Lukas Reichel said, I need to improve playing pucks along the boards.
Well, that's what kind of, because somebody asked me online when they saw that quote, was like, what do you mean? It's year 3 and he's finally now working on his game. It's like, no. Like you work on getting bigger. You work on getting faster. You work on like the big picture things to survive an 82 game season in the NHL. And then once you've got to that point, you can then, like Ryan Donato was spending 5-6 off seasons just trying to keep a job. And now that he had that 2-year deal, he was like, okay, this summer I can work on specifically improving things, and look how well that worked. So that's kind of the interesting thing I got from today. Like Frank Nazar, I just want to be faster, and Oliver Moore, I need to be stronger. Where it's like, I need to know, and then you talk to like a Jason Dickinson. He's like, well, I need to work on my second period neutral zones, like like very specific things. It's so interesting how these guys are constantly evolving and looking to get better from year to year.
I think it takes a level of maturity to recognize too what it is specifically you need to do, right? Because Frank Nazar comes up and says, whoa, this is a lot faster than I thought, so I got to get faster. Or I'm getting pushed off puck, so I have to be stronger. But as they learn, like, okay, it's not just about straight ahead speed. It's about the nuance. And Ryan Donato narrowed it down very specifically last offseason. It wasn't just about I need to skate faster. It's how do I make my skating more efficient? How do I make my stride work for me? Those sort of things. And that comes with maturity. It comes with leadership. So, yeah. All right, next segment, we are going to get into some Kyle Davidson conversation. He's going to talk about the coach. And he's going to talk about, is it time to add a big free agent? Stick around. We'll be back with more on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast presented by Bet365.
And summer will be here before you know it. Is your home's air conditioning up for the challenge? Four Seasons Heating and Cooling has been serving the Chicagoland area for over 50 years, and now is the time to get your air conditioning checked out. Four Seasons experts are ready to help you with your AC installation, maintenance, and repair. 2024, guys, did you know, was officially Chicago's hottest year on record. The heat index even reached 114 degrees this past summer at O'Hare. That is pretty uncomfortable. When it's hot and humid, you want to know your home is going to be cool and comfortable. And just because we're going to have to sweat out the draft lottery in a couple of weeks doesn't mean you need to sweat in your house this summer. Four Seasons expert technicians ensure you always receive reliable service, and Four Seasons doesn't charge more for service during nights, weekends, or holidays. And for a limited time, you can get up to $4,000 off a new comfort system with 0% financing for 72 months. That sounds great. Your trusted local experts are Four Seasons Heating and Cooling. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all of their special offers and money-saving coupons. Again, that's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
And when you get your new air conditioner, you might as well get some new floors too. And you should get them from our friends at Empire today. They are the flooring experts. They're dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores where there's a million options, none of them great, and there's a million people working, but none of them experts. No, you want great selection. You want great people helping you. That's why Empire today is your best bet for a new floor. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home, so you don't have to go anywhere. Pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. See how it looks with your furniture in your house with your dog hair, so you know exactly how it's going to look. Get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code CHGO. Yep, you heard me right. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/CHGO for full details. Do us a favor. Hit that like button for us if you've not yet. We're already well over 100, which we appreciate, but keep those going for us. Next up, we're going to hear from Kyle Davidson. And I really want to shout. Kyle Davidson has an unbelievable ability to say a lot of words and give you no information. He does not tip his hand at all. No. Ever. Today I had for Davidson, because he talked for 40 minutes. And again, the whole thing's going to be on our YouTube after the show.
Long
I had
talk.
my camera on a tripod because I'm not holding my phone for 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I was very carefully listening to him. Like, he's got to tip his hand somewhere. Absolutely not. At no point did I have any indication of what his plans are this offseason.
No.
That's what he wants.
It's pretty good.
That's what he wants. So they're either going to sign everybody or nobody or somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hear what he's looking for in a head coach first. Ask if there's a particular criteria he's
Nothing
looking
and
for.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. All at once. Here's Kyle Davidson.
What I came to the, somewhat of an understanding or realization is that we can't, put a box on what a candidate needs to look like and then just go with that, because I think you're limiting yourself to a very, very small number of people if that's the case. And so I think we're going to remain open-minded about things and where we want to go and, who could fit, whether it's internal or external. And so that's, I don't necessarily think we're just going to look at something different from Luke because we were in a potentially different spot. I think we are in a different spot, but that doesn't mean that we're going to pigeonhole ourselves into just looking for one specific thing or one specific type of candidate.
Open-minded.
Open-minded.
Be open-minded about
Even though it's David Carl, probably for sure.
Be open-minded about any candidate that presents themselves. Yeah, I mean, it's you're going to do yourself a favor by going through, a wide range of candidates. And, I think it's good practice to kind of even interviewing someone who you're like, maybe is a long shot, but it's still good to get their input and see how they might view your organization or see how they think about, hockey and how they would handle a situation or how they, feel the roster would work in a certain schematic way. Like, I think it's just good to, you can use that coaching search and talking to different candidates as, just kind of like picking brains. So I'm completely on board with them going, interview some of the most NHL experienced coaches that are available, interview David Carl and other coaches that are, might be less experienced or have experience with, different facets of the game, or guys, people that have coached young teams before. Like that would be, a good perspective to get on the team moving forward, and see where it lands. As much as it does feel like, as we talked about yesterday, the David Carl smoke is starting to get hard to ignore.
Yeah.
They still are going to go through a process of gathering candidates and figuring out who's going to be the best fit.
Yeah, it's a good strategy. I mean, you can't say we're going to get this one guy and then that one guy says, I don't want to be your coach. Then you're starting at square one in the middle of an off season.
Right.
So, you start with a wide scope and then you start to whittle it down and get your target. Even if you know who your ideal guy is, he still has to want to be here.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. Like, we're going to get into the free agency stuff too. And he kind of talks about it. Like, it takes two people to sign a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can use my thing. It takes two to tango. I made that up. The other night.
You
right.
copyrighted
No, you guys
that?
can use it. You two only.
I don't want to get into litigation, and I can't afford lawyers right now. So, but yes, it takes two people to sign a contract, the employee and the employer. And if one of them doesn't want to do it, you can't do it. So have a wide scope at the beginning of a search is always a good idea.
Well, I remember everyone freaked out during the GM search. I talked to Peter Chiarelli, and people were really concerned that the Hawks were going to hire him.
I was
But
too.
that's not well, rightfully so. But I mean, it's not a bad idea to pick the brain of a guy who's been all over the league for decades, just to say, hey, rebuilds. What do you think? How do they work? Pick as many brains as you can, and who knows? Maybe some candidate comes in there and says, "Here is my roadmap to a Stanley Cup for the Blackhawks. I've been paying close attention to what you're doing, and XYZ. Okay, maybe it blows you out of the water,
Or maybe it's somebody that you circle back on and becomes part of the coaching staff.
Yes,
There's always there's never a downside to getting the input from as many hockey people as you possibly
that's what
can.
happened with Jeff Greenberg.
I was just going to say that happened with the GM search.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. All right, well, you mentioned it, Greg. Speaking of the free agent plans, Kyle Davidson was asked, there's a lot of speculation. People think it's time to bring in a big name player. Is this the summer you do it, Kyle Davidson?
Look, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I don't think it's like, okay, and this year we're going to do it and this year we're not. And like, you're always looking to acquire elite talent when it comes available. It's just like, it's so much easier to say that, right? And like, they're probably doing the same thing in every other city, right? Player X could go in and play right there, and wow, that's what they should do, because why not, right? So, I hear it. I don't necessarily, that doesn't impact how we view whether we do, don't, able, not able. We talk about everything. We consider everything. But again, I'll go back to the fact that we have to take care of what we know and what is actionable on our end. And that's our young players. That's our youth, right? We know they're here. We know they're part of this moving forward. We know they're very promising, and we believe they can be very good. And so it's going to be that group that thrusts us into that next level. One player doesn't change everything, and there will be time, whether it's last summer, this summer, moving forward, that you know what, there is an acquisition of some sort, whether it be free agent or trade, or maybe not. But you know, in all likelihood, there's going to be a point where we do acquire someone that's going to be a contributor in a big way. But I just, again, it's so out of our hands in many cases, right? That that I can't say, yeah, that's what we're going to do this summer, because I just don't know if that's the case. And honestly, in all likelihood, it's not, because that's just the way things go, and how rare it is for players to become available, and then that you get players either in trade or free agency. So, you know, yeah, it's we talk about that stuff all the time. We consider every option, with the understanding that it's probably unlikely, just based on the odds, right? There's all these other teams. Just because people think we should doesn't mean we can or will. And so we consider, we evaluate, and in some cases we try, and doesn't always happen that way. So that's how I view every offseason, not just this one because people say it's time.
People are gonna crap their pants about that.
I'm surprised it's already not all over the place. Davidson's cheap. He's not gonna sign anybody. That's a guy that learned his lesson last year.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
That's a guy who exactly 1 year ago talked about how the standards need to be raised and it's unacceptable. That's a guy who learned, don't say anything because then it won't bite you in the ass later. So this was, basically saying, yeah, we're going to look into it. You always want to add elite talent if it's available.
Yeah.
But how often is it available?
Are you going to sign a big free agent? Yes. No. Maybe.
I mean,
Like,
but
that's-
if you
that's
say
the
we're going to go
approach.
out,
Yes.
That's the approach.
If he's like, if he says it's absolutely our plan to bring in
we're
a top
sign. We're going to
player,
sign the best free agent available, regardless of who it is. You're just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Right.
This way, he's kind of like preparing you to be like, tamper those expectations. If we get a guy, awesome. If we don't, we've got faith in what we're building here that we don't necessarily need.
That's a big thing that's different from last year to this year.
Right.
Is you've seen this young group come in and play at the NHL level, and you're like, oh, okay, some of these guys can do this. We don't need to, put a piece of gum on the, hull of the boat that's spouting water. Like, we can actually like put a cork in it, and it's good, and we're fine. Here's
is the cork better? Is it stronger than gum?
Probably. They
I would
put
think
corks
so,
in
yeah.
wine bottles and stuff, so I figure that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
But you can do that and be like, here's a young guy that we have faith in, trust. He's going to play in that spot, and you don't have to worry about having to get a stopgap or anything like that. A veteran that, your 1 year deal that you give him a bloated contract or, have to buy out or anything like that, or have to trade, and it just becomes a headache. Like, they have those players here this offseason that they believe in, which is a lot different.
And don't forget, I like to keep reminding people of this. They went hard after Jake Gensel last summer. So there was an opportunity that it made sense. They pursued it. It didn't work out. The pursuit happened. I don't think that Tampa offered him more money. I think he chose the opportunity in Tampa.
Yeah.
Which makes some sense.
Smart.
And worked out pretty well for him so far.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You could say, hey, we do want to go and try and sign Mitch Marner. Well, first of all, Mitch Marner has to become a free agent
That
first.
hasn't even happened yet.
That hasn't even happened.
I feel like it.
And you could want him all you want. If he doesn't want to be here, guess what? He's not coming here.
Right.
Same thing with trades. Go out and trade. Just because you have a ton of assets to trade doesn't mean you're going to make the best offer. Or team might not want to trade with you because you're like, hey, I don't want to give you our best player if you're in our division or in our conference. We don't want that to come back to haunt us in a couple of years. So he's always going to look to make his team better. He's aggressive. Just because something doesn't happen doesn't mean he didn't try. I mean, we got the reports at the draft last year. He tried to get back in at number 4 to get Levshunov and Demidov, which would have been amazing, but he tried. He just couldn't get that other team to agree to it. And then Pat Verbeek screwed it up. He's just saying basically everything. So we can't come back here a year from now and be like, well, you said that was going to happen and it didn't happen, so you're a liar.
Yes.
He's covering all his bases here, and also rightfully kind of preparing you to be like, if would we like to add Mitch Marner, Brock Besser, and Nikolai Ehlers? Absolutely we would. The odds of that happening are very, very small that we could actually get all that done. Will we try? Probably. Will it happen? Odds aren't in our favor.
That is factually correct. The odds are not in our favor. But it doesn't mean no.
But it's his job as GM to try and make those odds better, be a salesman. And, I think
he's got a lot to sell here.
I think the last few games made that sales pitch a little easier.
100%. All right, we got to hit the break zone one more time. We come back, we're going to hear from Nick Foligno, Spencer Knight, and Kyle Davidson as well on the optimism about this team going forward. Stick around on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast powered by Bet365. And speaking of Bet365, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. If you're a new customer, listen to this. You can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code CHGO365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. And with the Bet365 NHL early payout offer, you're a winner if your team gains a 3-goal lead with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app and use code CHGO365 when you sign up. Remember, new customers now get $150 in bonus bets when they bet $5, win or lose. Sign up. Use our code CHGO365. Deposit $10, then place a bet for $5, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Those bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, players, props, futures, and more. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER in app only.
Did you know that light beer has just gotten better?
I did.
Well, good for you.
Refreshing.
But if you didn't know, introducing Sam Adams American Light. It is crisp, clean, super easy to drink with no gimmicks and no fluff. Sam Adams American Light is not your average light beer. That's because it is brewed with 100% American-sourced ingredients from local independent farmers. Light beer that's made right. And when you're choosing a light beer, it shouldn't feel like a compromise. You don't want to say, oh, I'm having a light beer because, I don't want to, be bloated or feel full or anything like that. So I'm choosing a light beer, but I know I'm not going to have enough good taste in there. No, not with Sam Adams American Light. You're not. It is a classic. So smooth. You'll want to crack another one and another and maybe another, because it's always Sam season. Light beer just got better. You can grab some Sam Adams American Light, available now at select Chicago retailers. Of course, you must be 21 or older, and as always, please drink responsibly.
All right. Do we have any super chats? Oh, Jenna, first time listening live. I listen to every episode on the podcast. The show always brings me such comfort. Thank you, Jenna.
Nice.
Thank you guys so much for your time and hard work. We appreciate that, Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching the show. And if you haven't, Jenna and everyone else, hit that like button for us and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page as well so you get notified as soon as we go live. Some people in the chat are talking about Nick Lardis. Davidson did not have much of an update today. He did say that he's going to see a doctor in a day or two to get maybe a final diagnosis or whatever. So no clarity on that just yet, at least that he's willing to state publicly.
Right. And it's hard to get anything like that for junior leagues because there's no beat writers, there's coach post-game preference,
not usually
press conferences. Yeah. No, I mean maybe when you get to the final, you'll probably have some of that Canadian stuff there, but there's no Brantford Ben Pope asking questions after every game and
Brantford Ben
and keep asking the same questions until you get an answer.
Right.
So it's tough. Obviously not a good injury.
I feel like if he's still going to get testing done it's not a great sign that he's going to be back anytime soon.
Right. Usually that to me is like second opinion, third opinion type of things, and that's just like, I'm going to find me a doctor that says I could play.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's going to be all right. Hopefully, Brantford can go far into the playoffs so he can get back to the team. That'd be great to see. But, I mean, he's been having such an incredible season. It just kind of stinks to see him miss any time for whatever reason.
Yeah, especially on borderline / dirty play like that was. Yeah. I mean, the defenseman, that Oshawa player that hit him, got suspended 2 games for the play. So that tells you, the puck was long gone, and you could argue that part of that injury occurred because he tried to avoid the hit, where it left his leg exposed. But those second, split second decisions, you can't really do anything. But a 19-year-old kid getting hurt, they usually bounce back pretty quick.
Yeah.
If it's and
not to
29-year-old with a serious injury, then you worry a little more. But until we get official word, it's nothing but speculations and rumors, and you still got to pay attention to Brantford because Merrick Van Acker is still there, and he's playing real well, and they're up 3-1 in that series. So see what happens.
Yeah. And not to, I'm not trying to downplay it at all, but I don't think it's pretty unlikely that Lardis would even be in the NHL plans next year. At 19, I know he had a huge year, but
no,
he doesn't feel like a guy who's like on the doorstep of the NHL.
He'll be a Rockford guy for at least a season.
Yeah, we'll see how he does in the preseason and go from there.
Sure. All right, and now the third theme of the day was the optimism about this team going forward. We're going to start with Nick Foligno, who is always great to talk to, was good, funny, in a good mood at the end of the day. You can check that full thing out again at our YouTube page, but here is Nick Foligno talking about his optimism for the future here. Asked if he sees future leaders emerging.
Do you see a leadership group forming out of this kind of next generation now?
I do. And I actually had that conversation with those guys. I'm like, that's the beautiful thing. And, it's hard because I've been on different sides of it, right? I've been the guy that's been able to build a culture with a group in Columbus. I came into a really good culture in Boston, so I've seen how pieces come together. And when you're that young group, and that was the challenge I kind of said to these guys, I'm like, you have an opportunity here to be part of what turns this entire franchise around. And I said, that's really exciting that you guys can all grow together and find your own leadership roles within that, and have people there to mentor you along as you go, but learn but do it together, right? Like find your voice or your way you're going to impact the game. And I'm watching guys do that, and it's pretty neat. I mean, it's cool because I think you are going to kick yourself one day if you look back and say, I was part of that core, but I didn't want to commit myself to it enough. And look at those guys now when they're raising the cup in 5, 6, 7 years. Hopefully it's next year. But that's the cool part of sports, and like when you have an opportunity to really build it from the ground up. And these guys, I think, have realized that, and I hope they take it to heart this summer and like come in with that attitude, a little bit of swagger, like this is their team, As much as I'm the cap, like this is their team, and I know that, and I think it's exciting for me to hand it off to whoever. And know it's going to be in great hands, and there's enough guys in that room that can do it. And, you see it out of them. Now you got to pull it out of them, and they have to realize it, but it's all part of maturing. And I think you saw that. You watched how Vlasic matured this year. I watched Frank Nazar mature a lot before my eyes. I'm really proud of that kid. Like he really came to play this year and took it to heart. And, obviously there's ebbs and flows, but I thought his game really took off. I think Bedsy has improved a lot as a person, as a player. I'm really encouraged by him. I know there's enough said about his, but he's going to be a hell of a player, and he's a great person. And it's neat to see how he's kind of gone through that process as well. And there's probably a list of more. And even a guy like Spencer Knight coming in too, and Sodi, and like I can keep going through the whole room. And there's good pieces here. It's just a matter of guys realizing it, but respecting it and knowing that this wasn't good enough, and we have to come in with a really different attitude of a standard next year and get to it right away and never look back.
How different is your attitude about that now than it was last year? I mean, last year you were pretty vocal about this roster has to change over the summer, and changes were made and it didn't lead to much better results. So how differently do you feel now? And did you kind of learn from, I guess, what this year represented?
Yeah, maybe not the results on paper, but results internally. Like, we're a different team completely and talking a lot different now than we did last year, right? So that's encouraging. Like, listen, this is a results-based league. I'm not stupid to that, and I am not happy with the way we're sitting, but you realize you have to go through these hard moments to find a way to get to where you want to go. And I think for me, that's what encourages me about this group, and I'm excited about the opportunity these guys have and where we're trying to go. And that's why it's like, you have to go through, maybe you have to, addition by subtraction sometimes for an organization to move forward. And I think you're seeing why that had to happen, right? You lose some guys, but you gain some guys who are really hungry to be part of this. And I'm excited, and that's probably why I'm looking forward to next season already, and how these guys can come in here and really take a hold of the opportunity they're getting, but respect it, work hard this summer, and come back with a statement of, like, I'm going to take over this team. And if they do that, this team could go on a pretty nice trajectory in the standings and just as a group.
As we said to start the show, if you've been with us for a long time and you remember last year's version of this show, very different, even from Nick Foligno, who is a very optimistic dude. He was beaming today. Someone in the chat said he's like, Jay Strasner said, he seems like a proud dad. And that was very much the vibe I got. And he mentioned, too, like the tough love of, hey, there were some lessons that had to be learned, and they were learned. And mentioned Nazar specifically, or Nazar as he calls him, as a guy who really stood out. Like, there was a lot in there. He is not like Kyle Davidson in hiding his words.
No, he'll tell you.
And Spencer calls it out, the addition by subtraction comment, which I think we all know what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, the statement of, there's a genuine care in the room now of wanting to get this team where it needs to go. I mean, it talked about it a number of times how things changed after the trade deadline, and it was guys that weren't here anymore, and then the guys that were brought in, and how that shifted everything. And yeah, I mean, there's a ton to be excited for. And I think for a guy like Foligno, he really does, personally put a lot into the idea of, like, being a foundation piece of, like, I think he understands he's not going to be around this team for postseason games or anything like that. But knowing that, he helped mentor guys like Bedard and Levshinov and Korchinski and Rinzel and Vlasic and all these guys that, you kind of look at and say, yeah, they're probably, those are going to be the guys that are around here for when this team is having success again, and, extended postseason runs and all that. He's a guy that I think genuinely takes pride in wanting to be a part of those guys' careers and how they grow and develop and everything. And he's played with a ton of people over the years that have done the same thing with the Senators and Blue Jackets and over the years. And he talked about going to Toronto and Boston and having those experiences as well. So there's definitely that's definitely something that I'm sure he's expressing, and the veterans in the room now, I feel like, have that same mindset of, like, trying to, like, set the foundation for what's going on, what's going to be going on the next few seasons.
Do you ever have an older dog, and then you go out and get a puppy, and that puppy makes the older dog seem more youthful?
I've
that happened to me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on with Nick Foligno. He's that older dog that gets the puppy to play with, and just look at his last few games.
Yeah.
Like, it was his best few games he's had all season, and he's excited again. I mean, it's got to be, for a guy like Foligno, it's got to be a grind and wear on him when you have, like, the Winter Classic, and you have that room where it's supposed to be these veteran guys who are the ones who are supposed to lead by example, but they're the ones that are making the mistakes night in and night out, and then, want to say they don't want to be here. Like, that's got to just be a drag for a guy like Foligno. And then finally, the last month of the season, he gets these, younger players that are absorbing everything, and you're seeing the results. You're seeing a team that, hey, we got 2 good periods that game, but we came up short to finally going into Montreal. And I don't want to seem like that one game can turn a franchise around, but
it means a lot.
I think when this core gets to where they want to be, some of them are going to look back and say, remember that game in Montreal when they could have clinched and we were down 2-0 and we came back and won? That's that's like a foundational type of win.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what we're going to hear about next from Kyle Davidson, who went out of his way to point out that specific game and what it represented for this organization. So stick around. You're going to hear from him. Then we're going to play a little cut from Spencer Knight that I think everyone's going to like too. Back in a moment on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast, powered by Bet365. And man, there's nothing like live hockey. And I know the Blackhawks have been eliminated, but there are some good series if you're looking for a little spring trip, maybe to Dallas or Colorado, or
maybe
not St. Louis or Winnipeg, but all over the country, aside from those two.
Sure.
Tampa or
Yeah.
Sunshine, Florida.
Yeah.
It's nice this time of year.
So if you're trying to get some last-minute tickets because you find yourself in a playoff town, jump on Game Time. You can get tickets for whatever you're looking for there. And with their new feature called Game Time Picks, it makes getting tickets to see your favorite sport live even easier, or concert, or whatever. It's not just sports. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. We use Game Time all the time because busy schedules, kids, life, all that stuff. Sometimes it's hard to commit to a concert or a game 3 months out. Always, our first move is to go to Game Time, and we find those great deals. And if you are going to an arena, maybe you're not familiar with, you get those views from your seat. So there's no surprises. They've also got their lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find it lower on one of their competitors. It's really awesome stuff. So get yourself the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Oh, what time is it? Game time?
It's not on there.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm Ron Burgundy, baby.
Well, what time is it? Spring. And you know what that means? It means spring cleaning. You know who's doing the spring cleaning, as I keep asking questions and answering them myself?
Yeah, I like this.
It's Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake. Come in and get fresh savings during their spring clearance sales event, like 0% financing for 60 months, $0 down, 0 payments for 90 days, plus 0 hidden fees on select new Chrysler models. Or check out their selection of over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. With one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories, you're sure to find the perfect vehicle for you. And as one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, they're able to keep their prices competitive, so you know you'll be getting a great deal. Plus, with Ray's price promise, that lets you shop confidently because they guarantee no add-ons and no hidden fees and no gimmicks, which means the price you see and hear is the price you pay. You don't have to worry about any changes, any stressful negotiations, or any tricks. The people at Ray Chevrolet just wanted to help you get into the right vehicle at the right price. So go see for yourself. Visit our partner at their convenient location on Route 12 in Fox Lake. And don't miss out on their spring clearance sales event going on all month long for 0% financing on select new Chevy models. Shop Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or at raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
All right, final segment here. We were going to end the show with this, but the Montreal conversation kind of led nicely into this. Kyle Davidson, who towards the end of his 40-minute press conference felt like he was ready to run through a wall for this team. If we were optimistic, Kyle Davidson, probably multiply that by 10. Here he is, about 3.5 minutes of Kyle Davidson, very fired up about the future of this team.
You know, when I'd stand up here previously and say, like, look, I see what's happening under the surface here. Like, I see what's happening, and they're coming. And then, you know, sometimes just because they're not on the NHL ice doesn't mean they're not, you know, very promising, right? And I think we saw that, where we saw Sam, we saw Oliver, we saw Ryan Green, and a number of these other prospects that we're coming and how they're playing and how they've developed and what their steps are to being what we think they can be. But it's nice to see them come in and deliver on the expectations and the belief we had in them. Now there's a lot of work left to do, right? Like, we're a long way off. We understand that, but you have to have the talent in your organization to take those next steps moving forward. And we believe we have that, and that's the toughest thing to get, is the young talent. And we've got a lot of it in volume and in quality. And so we're really excited about that. How that looks, again, I didn't really know how it would look for some of these young guys stepping into the NHL. I knew they have the talent, but you just don't know how it's going to work. Just like I don't necessarily know what that next step, what they're going to look like in training camp. Maybe they're taking another step, and then, that's really exciting. And so, but I think the thing that we can be really excited about, and that what I'm really excited about, and our management team is internally, is that we had some young players, and that roster the last couple days, weeks, was really young. And you walk into an environment like Montreal, and you see the guys that they lean in. They didn't wilt, and they leaned in on that environment and played a really damn good game. That's exciting. That's really exciting to know that a playoff type atmosphere, and they rise to that occasion. And some of them haven't even hit, if it's Sam or Oliver, it was their 7th game. Sam's walking into Bell Center in that environment, played 27 minutes. That's crazy, and Frank and Connor and Slags and Ollie and all, there's almost too many to name, because there's so many young guys in that lineup. And to play the way they did, you can only be excited about what that means moving forward, not only, just for next season, but in big games when we get into environments like that. Even the Ovechkin game, when he tied Gretzky's record, crazy environment, and we played pretty damn well for the most. They hit another level there in the third, where they're in this, where they are in the standings for a reason, and they're a really great team. But we ended up losing that game. But I think you saw for the better part of 2 periods, we were right in there with them. And then in Montreal, tough start in that crazy environment, and then we came back. It would have been really easy for the all these young guys. You're like, holy geez, look at this. They're about to clinch a playoff spot, and you know what? Let them have it. What a fun night for them. This is cool. And look around. Didn't do that. They leaned in, made a difference, pulled ourselves back into the game, and almost won in regulation. That's the kind of thing that gives me a lot of juice going into the offseason, and excited about where this group's headed.
There he is, Kyle Davidson, about as fired up as you'll ever see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least with cameras in his face, that's for sure.
He's right, though, about that Montreal game. Like, that is something I do think, and again, we have a tendency, with recency bias to overblow things, but I do think you can go back and pinpoint moments, and you can pinpoint the Winter Classic as a low point of the season. Mm-hmm. Connor Murphy is still talked today and was like, Winter Classic, good Lord.
Yeah.
Take us out back, and no, we don't deserve anything after that. Like, he was still upset about it. Mm-hmm. I think you can look at that Montreal game as a real turning point in this rebuild, where you've got, 13 young guys in a roster, 12 that night, whatever it was, in truly a playoff atmosphere in the mecca of hockey. Sorry, Toronto, it's Montreal. And they held their own and they won the game.
Yeah.
And it's huge. And those young guys played such a huge part in making that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that, you go back and you'll, does it really make that big of a difference in the, the immediacy? No, not really. But looking back at the kind of confidence that it can instill in some of these guys, and just the run that the final 3 weeks, final month of the season had for a lot of guys, Frank Nazar especially, it really, we talked about it in real time, how that was going to be kind of the run up to next season and setting the table for everything. I'm very optimistic going into next year, even more so than just thinking like, oh, next year is going to be, some of the young guys are going to get some opportunities. Now it's just like those young guys deserve those opportunities. They deserve to have that shot, to be in the NHL and continue on this upward trajectory that they've started at the end of the year here. So, I mean, that Montreal game was awesome. Finding a way to get the OT win against Ottawa in the season finale was great. Just really good showings from those guys, driving the team towards the end of the year. And you have to be excited for what's coming next.
Yeah, I mean, there is so much reason for optimism, and I know it's, I saw somebody in the chat say like next year is playoffs or bust. It's not.
It's not.
It's not playoffs or bust next year.
It's
It is improve. It is see growth from your young players. It is have more guys at the end of next season. Maybe it's Sasha Boisvert. Maybe it's, who knows? Maybe it's Nick Lardis. Maybe it's Kevin Korchinski becomes a full-time NHL player. Whatever it might be, you want next year to resemble this season from the Utah game on, right? That's kind of how you want it to look.
Well, Nick Foligno talked about that, saying they need to get into camp and set a standard in training camp and not dip below that standard the entire year.
Yeah.
Like a playoff run would be amazing next year. But if you could be, people are going to say like, hey, why can't they be the Montreal Canadiens next year? Sure, maybe, but Montreal is a little further along. They have Nick Suzuki and they have Cole Caulfield,
right?
And then
Bedard and Nazar.
And they added, Lane Hudson and his million secondary assists that are super important. And
you gotta he broke an NHL record, dude. You've got to give Lane Hudson some credit.
Sure, he's a nice little player, but like people in Montreal think he's the second coming of Bobby Orr because he got 48 secondary assists this year. Nice little player. You know what I did see? I saw Frank Nazar own his ass for 60 minutes the other night. So you can have all the assists you want, but if you're a defenseman and can't stop the other team from getting assists too, you're kind of useless.
Or
anyway,
Erik Karlsson.
Yeah. So, but is being next year's Canadiens realistic? Probably not. Maybe be next year's Utah, where you're there for 3/4 of the season and then, the talent gap starts to wear down, or just play meaningful games.
That's it.
The entire year.
Yeah, if you're playing meaningful hockey in the lead up to or even after the trade deadline, like that's a massive win for this group moving forward. Playoffs, I mean, if you get Marner and Besser and Nikolai Ehlers,
like that changes the conversation.
If you go out and spend all the money on all the top guys, yeah, sure. Then you you better make the playoffs for all that. But no, I mean, I think, the growth of these young players is going to be really important. But I definitely feel like, at least just based off of the new perception of the team and the new, vibe of this group moving forward here, I think can really make a big difference. On and off the ice. And if a team is clicking off of the ice, that can translate to, practices and how they work together, how they gel together, and translates to games. And, they believe in they actually have a belief in each other and a camaraderie. Alex Vlasic this season kept saying, brotherhood a lot, regarding, getting the group to gel together, the young guys. And I feel like that's definitely happening. You get another, summer off season prospect camp that'll be off ice and all that. And then you get all these young guys, a lot of them who, because they were in college, couldn't go through training camp. Levshinov was hurt. He didn't go through training camp. Like, you just get those experiences all together and you go into next season as probably a more, unified group. Even that can make a big difference outside of, adding a big free agent or anything like that.
And the coach. Got to get the coach right.
Of course.
That's true. That too. Other little things that maybe slipped through the cracks. The Donato and Davidson talked about the contract and just said they're not really at a road bump. It was just kind of the timing of trying to get a bunch of stuff done at the deadline. Then it didn't work, but feels like something's getting done. Ryan Donato was talking long term when referring to his time with the Blackhawks and about the team and everything.
Yeah.
The thing is, when it comes to those types of contracts, we generalize them as salary cap hit in years, but there's so much more that goes in the contract. So much little language, clauses, things like that. It's not just a piece of paper that says we will pay you $3.9 million a year for the next 4 years. Sign here.
Right.
No, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of language, a lot of little details that Donato probably feels he's earned and is owed now that he's paid his dues. So it certainly sounded like something is going to get done.
Well, and also there was an offer that was close at the trade deadline to get him an extension, and now that there's 30 goals behind Ryan Donato's name, there will be a new offer.
Very smart.
That's why he went out and scored another 12 goals.
Yeah,
that's what his agent told him. Like, just keep playing.
He bet on himself,
and it worked.
Like, I mean, it's a good bet too, because maybe he doesn't continue the pace he did, but maybe he doesn't after the deadline, but he still has numbers on the board that are only going to go up. It was a wise move for him, and he probably did add another at least $250K per year to whatever offer was out there.
I'm sure.
Probably more. So
and reports are that it was just under $4 million a year, 3 years, under 4. So now you probably 3 years, maybe slightly
4.2?
over 4. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it might be, just as I said, it might be like little details that he's holding out for.
It might. I mean, it might be they offered him 3. He wants 5. Maybe he'll land at 4. Who knows?
All right, couple things before we go. We are 20 likes away from 200 likes. Let's get there. Hit the like button for us. We have a sale right now to become a diehard, $36 for the year in celebration of the upcoming Bears draft, my friends, as they add to the Super Bowl roster for next season. Drafting Green Bay. I just learned that today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Imagine.
Cool.
What are you going to do?
Emma's going to be out there covering it. Yep.
Those post-draft parties are going to be wild.
You'll be like parking on someone's lawn for the draft. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, make sure you take advantage of the sale, $36. Yes, you still get a free shirt. Yes, you'll still get 20% off all of our events, takeovers, watch parties, all that jazz, including our 2 golf outings coming this summer. So scan that QR code on your screen right now or go to allchgo.com, navigate over to that Diehards tab and save there. And tomorrow, there were a couple little things that we noticed today. Positive, I think. We'll discuss it tomorrow. Jason Dickinson, Connor Murphy, and to a lesser extent, Nick Foligno with like a little bit of a cautionary tale for the young players. So that'll be part of tomorrow's show.
Bunch of wet blankets.
A bunch of wet blankets, exactly. So that will be the feature tomorrow, 2:30. Mario and I will be remote, but we will be here. And then, of course, we'll be queuing up your mini pod for Saturday. So we'll talk to you tomorrow at 2:30 right here on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast, powered by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.